Good morning and welcome to Budget Model Railways. And today I wanted to talk about making your own buildings. It tends to get called scratch building, but I think I prefer the term custom building because at the end of the day what you're doing is making a building to fit a specific place on a layout. And the thing is, it's quite good fun. It's much simpler than people realise, and it's an awful lot cheaper than any of the alternatives. It's not as complex as people think. All these buildings are basically combinations of squares, rectangles and triangles. If you can cut out a square, a rectangle and a triangle in cardboard, you can make a building. Because however complicated they look, that's all they are. They're combinations of squares, oblongs and triangles. So it's quite easy to do it from there. I do have an awful lot of videos on the channel about how to do this. So this is just a bit of a sum up, just to kind of refresh. If you want some more specific ideas, please do have a look back through, and I cover a lot more of the actual, this is how you use a ruler, this is how you cut. This is really just to give a bit of an overview, to give people an incentive, if you like, to have a go. Price-wise is worth talking about. So to make one of these is probably a couple of quid, compared to say £10 or £15 for a card kit, £15-20 for a plastic kit, £20 to £40 for a resin kit. Now the trade-off from that is obviously time, and we'll come to that in a minute. I only use very basic tools: craft knife, steel rule, PVA glue. It has to be a good PVA glue. It doesn't have to be the very best. I wouldn't go spending some of these Pucker Model Railway ones where a little thing like that is £5. I buy Screwfix's PVA 5 litres at a time for about £14, and it's brilliant. Glue stick, I'm going to keep knocking these buildings over, aren't I? Some clear glue. I do find a little set square useful. Pair of scissors, and you do need a decent pencil or fine pen. It does need to be fine, because if you've got a ball pen with a millimetre thick line, if you cut one side of it or the other, you might be 1.5mm different. And that shows up in a building, especially when you're working in N. Now, same rules apply in 00, and most of the videos I've done prior to this are 00. What's given a bit of incentive of this is I didn't think I'd be able to scratch build, custom build my own buildings in N, and it's actually proved no harder than doing 00. The reason being, I would say, is I'm using injection moulded kit doors and windows. Number of different companies do them. Again, okay, it might be £6 or £7 for a pack, but you get 3 or 4 buildings, it keeps the cost down. I am about to experiment with 3D printing them. You can download them from things like Thingiverse. Doug has the ability to design them when he's not busy at uni. And then, of course, if you can 3D print your own doors and windows, it'll become substantially cheaper. Laser cutting is good. I think it's okay for 00 and bigger. It's probably not going to cope as well with the finer stuff needed for N, but we will give it a go at some point. But certainly 3D printing will be the way forward. Although some doors, those are just painted cardboard, so they've come up quite well. Materials I'm using: cereal packet card. So that's cost nothing. I use an awful lot of mountain board. This is what they use for picture framing. Now you can buy it from places like Hobbycraft and craft shops. Even if you've got to buy it new, it's still a relatively cheap way of making a building. An A3 sheet would have made all these buildings and more. However, I know of a picture framers down at Chandler's Ford in Hampshire, it's a long way away from me, who sell big bags of offcuts where they've done picture framing for about £5 or £6. And so I get one from there whenever I'm occasionally down there. But it might be worth talking to your local picture framer and see if they'll supply you a bag of offcuts. You can then use things like signs and so on to make them look better. I buy mine cheap when I see them. Obviously, you can download them. For the materials, I like the Metcalfe card. It's very easy to work in. Strangely enough, this building is built using the Super Quick brick papers, and although they're 00, they don't actually look too bad in N. And of course you can download them and print them yourself. The only word of warning there is make sure you know what you're doing. The only time I've tried doing it, everything was fine till I put PVA glue on it and then all the colours run. So it's worth pointing out that you need to make sure that you're using the right kind of inks and printers. Perhaps somebody that knows about these things can comment. Simple things like guttering is black paper. Downpipes are just micro rod painted black. The windows are just black on the back, which gives you the look. And that again shows you how sort of simple really the construction is. These are low relief buildings. I just use offcuts to do the bracing. And one of the things I wanted to do this video now is usually I've finished a building and you don't get to see how I built it. So I thought it'd be useful to see this one. So for this, I'm doing hipped roofs. So I'm just putting a bit of card painted black, some black paper for the guttering. And I'll then do, this is a new thing I've tried. So this is strips of cartridge paper, scored, and then overlapped and offset and black washed once they've been painted. And it does a really nice looking roof. So that's what I'll do on this one. Chimneys are made in situ. So when I do the side, it includes the chimney, which gives you a lot more strength. And you can build the roof around it. Now this one's going at the back of a layout, so it hasn't got a back. But I thought then that you'd get some idea. You know, you don't need to be too clever, just offcuts, so long as they're a right angle to hold it. Using a darker colour inside helps because, for instance, on this one, I'm just going to put glazing behind these windows. I won't need to put black card. And glazing, I just use the clear card that things like Pico points come in. A lot of the model railway stuff comes in clear plastic packaging, and I just cut that up and use. And the things with these, as I say, they're designed to fit a specific layout. So things like the Metcalfe kits are really good, but the difficulty comes when it won't fit the layout you're building. Now, I should say, if you're using card, you might need to colour the edges. But what I do is I tend to use a corner piece. So I use a piece of whatever I've used, fold it over. And if you can tell the difference from that, from 6 or 8 inches away, fine. But you can't. Or like on this one, where I put corns in there. Just using different coloured brick paper. It's quite fiddly to do, but what I did was, I might as well show you the plan now so that I can talk about plans. I did a little drawing there to show me how to work out how to do it. Now, people often ask me, how do you get the plans? How do you get the details? Well, what I've got is I've got quite a big collection of books. This is just one of them. I've actually got 5 books on railway stations, all bought from charity shops or cheap on eBay. And in this one, for instance, there was this wonderful photo of Long Melford Station. And as you can see then, that's where the idea for that building came from. And it's then a question of, right, what's the dimensions I've got on the layout? And I start drawing rough plans. And in fact, you can see that it took me 3 or 4 attempts to get the proportions right. And it's something like 2 to 1, you know, don't make something twice as high, any more than twice as high as it is wide. In this case, that's a square. So, you know, if it's even 4 by 4, then you've probably got proportions right. Sizings, people say to me, how do you work the scale? Well, it's relatively simple. The kit doors give you a door. Doors are about 7 feet. In N gauge, 2 millimetres, 7 or 8. So you're talking about 14, 15 millimetres for a door. If you take 8 or 9 feet as the height of a normal ceiling, then you're obviously talking at about 18, 19 centimetres for a storey. Railway stations tend to have very big stories, particularly on the lower floors, things like waiting rooms. So that's where you're coming from. Chimney heights in this case are dictated by the height of the backboard I've got, because I've got a very low layout. And then a simple diagram to do the roof shapes. I did do technical drawing at school, not that you'd know it from that. But again, if you can draw straight lines and squares, you can design your own buildings, really. Not that difficult. And it doesn't need to be complex. All I really want to know is where am I putting the doors and windows. It's worth remembering things like windows tend to be in line with the tops of doors. Things like that. Have a look at photos. It will give you the proportion. And always remember there were big stations and there were little stations. So you can really work your own designs out. You can do this in 00. All my previous videos actually are 00 if you have a look at those. Something like O would be wonderful, 7mm, because you could do an awful lot of detail. What I'm enjoying with N is it doesn't have to be too perfect, because you're going for an impression, an illusion if you like, and on a small building that's going to be 7 or 8 inches away, not really too bad. I can't remember if I mentioned, but posters and things, I tend to buy them when they're cheap, things like sheets like that, but you can download them as well and print them. I've done that a few times, no difficulty at all. So there you have it. It's not that difficult actually to make your own buildings. Now there is a trade-off. If I'd bought that as a £30 resin building, it's on my layout tomorrow. This so far to get to this stage, including planning and researching, has taken me about 5 hours. It's probably going to take me about 10 hours to build that building. Something like that was an evening's work. That's a fisherman's hut, by the way. Copied on the ones at Hastings to go on my little harbour scene. But it's enjoyable. You know, it's not costing me very much money, and I'm getting a nice result, something that's unique. For me, almost the longer it takes, the better. And it's been good for me because I don't have a very good attention span. I should have been a millennial. It's all instant gratification. It's a bit sad in somebody who's 61 in a few weeks' time. So this has been really good for me. Projects where I know I'm only going to get the roofs done tonight in the hour that I'm going to sit. It'll take me a week, 2 weeks to finish this building. And that's really good actually, because it's teaching me to quietly sit and enjoy and do something. So there you go. It's even good for your mental health. What more could you want? It's enjoyable, it's cheap, it's good fun, and it's good for your mental health. As is model railways. We all live quite difficult lives these days, and some of us have had quite difficult, and I know some of you have over the years. And model railways is very good therapy. You know, being able to sit, put some music on. I mean, doing things like the roofs, which isn't overtaxing. I'm drawing lines and scoring and sticking layers on. It isn't actually boring. I chucked some music on my headphones, and for a couple of hours, it was really nice. I'm being creative, and creating is good for the soul, isn't it? So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please have a go at making your own buildings. If you're still with us, and increasingly I know a lot of you do watch the videos to the end, please just do it. Find a corner of your layout where you can make your own building. Don't worry if it comes out. Have a look at some of my first videos. They're very crude buildings. Doesn't matter. Build them, put them on your layout. The detailing can be really simple. You know, these lintels are cereal packet card cut. It's that simple. Don't, you know, just put a little bit of thought into how do I just pimp it up a little bit, and have fun, and please have a go at making model railway buildings. If you haven't, in my view, you're missing one of the really enjoyable bits of the hobby. So there you go. Thank you as always, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.